the socialism that distinguishes itself in opposition to the dictatorship of the proletariat. So, I want to go ahead and skip forward. If people who are familiar with the writings of the party, will see how almost everything that's spoken of in this chapter is something we've spoken of, I think more lucidly even than what you will find here, and with more contemporary significance. I'm going to go to page 91 here. And it says that this is the role of negation in development. The general forward movement, as we have seen, infinitely complex, as it is in detail, takes place through the struggle of the new and the old, of the overcoming of the old and dying away by the new and rising. This dialectical conception of development as opposed to the older liberal conception favored by bourgeois theoreticians. The bourgeois liberals recognize development and assert that progress is a universal law of nature and society. But they see development as a gradual and smooth process, proceeding through a series of easy and imperceptible changes. They may recognize struggle where they cannot help but notice it, but to them, it seems an unfortunate interruption of orderly progress, more likely to impede development than to help it forward. You've heard people say that about the Black liberation movement, about the Black struggle, that, it was an unfortunate kind of thing that had to happen, the rebellion, et cetera. After every rebellion, all the bourgeois liberal media and economists come out and talk about all the economic conditions that's so bad in the African community. In every significant rebellion, they bring out all the data and say, this is the condition, these are the circumstances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And after they do that, because they can't avoid that, and they see the rebellion as unfortunate, they lock up everybody who was engaged in the rebellion. They put cities and communities on lockdown and things like that, but they do nothing to make changes. So they recognize it. They don't even, they advocate some kind of abstract or even real changes that they're never going to do anything about. They see the rebellions, the uprisings, the struggles, the revolutions and things like that as unfortunate kinds of events because that disrupted this orderly process that we were involved in. Somebody was at the table, I think perhaps you were, Olafin, where in Washington, D.C., where this white woman who had spent so many years in Europe and was from, it wasn't Finland, but some other country, and who was married to an African on the continent of Africa, who was engaged in the struggle trying to show how this gradual improvement was happening in Africa, and that how we were defining things, really should be unnecessary because, Africans can go to school and they can do this and that and change circumstances, but this stuff that we were talking about was absolutely unnecessary. It was disruptive, and that's how liberals are. Liberals love change, as long as it's smooth and gradual and doesn't upset anybody or anything. So, for them, what exists has not to be supplanted by what is coming into existence. The old has not to be overcome by the new, but it has to be preserved so that it can gradually improve itself and become a higher existence. You've never heard that? That this, this thing, it can be improved over a period of time, that we preserve this. You want to throw out the whole thing? You want to overturn the whole thing? Like, well, what are you going to replace it with? what has to happen is that this thing can be made this the best idea in the world. Whoever heard of the kind of idea that Americanism and liberal imperialism represent in the world? True to this philosophy, which they took over from the capitalists, the Social Democrats strove to preserve capitalism with the idea that it could imperceptibly grow into socialism, and thus striving to preserve capitalism, they end by fighting not for socialism but against it. $15 an hour over a number of years. Well, I mean, this is the social democracy that we're talking about, When the struggle is on, these exponents of social peace and class collaboration cannot avoid struggle. They simply enter into it on the other side. And that's what we're looking at. So, on page 92, second to the last paragraph, the liberals' mistake lies not in recognizing the occurrence of gradual change, because that happens, but in recognizing nothing else and failing to comprehend the role of negation in development. Dialectics teaches us to understand that the new must struggle with and overcome the old, but the old must give way to and be supplanted by the new. In other words, that the old must be negated. That's the way we move forward. That's what these people the liberal who thinks metaphysically understands negation simply as saying no. To him, negation is merely the end of something. Far from meaning advance, it means retreat. Far from meaning gain, it means loss. Dialectics, on the other hand, teaches us not to be afraid of negation, but to understand how it becomes a condition of progress, a means to positive advance. That's what Black Power Blueprint is. To build the future, right now, the process of negating the colonial capitalist enterprise. That's what all the struggles of the peoples around the world, take back their resources, grow their own economies, as a part of the process is not just to do that, but to negate. It's to negate colonial capitalism. That's what we're involved in, a process of negation of capitalist colonialism. By growing, at the very same time we're in the struggle, independent economy, anti-capitalist, anti-colonial, a socialist economy, right in the belly of the world economy itself. When we say the belly, I don't mean just the United States. I mean the whole world exists in the belly of a capitalist economy. That's what dual and contending power actually has to translate into. On page 93, quickly, negation of negation. The dialectical conception of development through negation is opposed to the liberal conception of development. For the liberal, negation is simply a blow which destroys something. But on the contrary, negation is the condition for positive advance, in which the old is abolished only after it has already produced the conditions for the transition to the new, and in which all the positive achievement belonging to the old stage is carried forward into the new. That's what Black Power Blueprint is. That's what the tribunals that we hold in all these different places is about. That's what black community control of the police is a negation of the colonial state. It is not simply saying no, but in the process of doing that, we're creating our own capacity for self-government and for independence and for socialism. Moreover, a stage already past can be recreated. A stage already past can be recreated on a higher level as a result of double negation, the negation of negation. According to the liberal conception of development, if a given stage of development is to be raised to a higher level, this must take place gradually and peacefully without the process of negation. but on the contrary, it is only through a double negation that the highest stage can be reached. The repetition of the old stage on a higher level, taking place through the negation of negation, is a comprehensive and important law of development, the operation of which is exemplified in many processes of nature, history, and thought. The positive character of negation. And this is negation in dialectics does not mean simply saying no, wrote Engels. When in the process of development the old stage is negated by the new, then in the first place that new stage could not have come about except as arising from in opposition to the old. That's really important. I mean, that's part of the struggle that we're involved in with opportunism and these liberal opportunists who want to talk about socialism, who want to be. If you talk about fighting capitalism, that means you have to have a particular capacity to do it. You need particularly an organization, and you need to have a particular organization that is comprised of a certain kind of membership, whose profession is making that happen. If you don't have that, you don't have any socialism. And you're talking about socialism, but it's opportunism and liberalism because it's not doing what's necessary to make it happen. And the African People's Socialist Party, we've taken on some of the most fundamental questions in the whole world. And I'm looking at Comrade Jackson, who's sitting here with us, and because she's a constant reminder, and Comrade Kaya, a constant reminder of the significance of a real revolutionary party that moves from a real dialectical historical method of investigation and analysis that recognizes the world as it is and the place that we're all in, because many Africans who call themselves progressives and leftists and communists and et cetera, deal with white people and their presence and their analysis based on the power relationships that exist between the colonized African population and the colonizer North American or white population. And even though they would deny it to the heavens, the reality is that they do not have the ability to actually believe that we can make this revolution by requiring white people of the colonizer nation to unite under the leadership of the African Revolution so that we can overturn the whole damn social system and bring a new world about. They would take, and they usually take some kind of opportunistic stance, because first of all, it's based a lot on subjectivism, because you can't say this because the white people's feelings get hurt when you raise this kind of question, or they get angry, et cetera, et cetera. Damn the objective reality, damn what it is that we're fighting for. The positions have to be modified based on the existing power relationships as opposed to having a stance based on the power relationships that we're fighting for, based on the fact that we're negating a particular social system and we're negating relationships that exist in the social system. Because you can't have white power domination and you can't have the colonizer and the colonized functioning as as equals. That's an absolute oxymoronic statement. It's not just oxymoronic, it's moronic without the oxy attached to it. That you can have an equal relationship between the colonizer and the colonized. That's crazy. That's why we don't want to say colonize and colonize. We'd rather say racism, where we're teaching people to like each other, as opposed to engage in a contest for power. So, okay, when in the process of development the old stage is negated by the new, then in the first place that new stage could not have come about except as arising from and in opposition to the old. Arising from and in opposition to the old. The conditions for the existence of the new arose and matured within the old. The negation is a positive advance brought about only by the development of that which is negated. The old is not simply abolished, leaving things as though it had never existed. It is abolished only after it has itself given